This segment is about hang time, a very important concept in football and cast net throwing. Hang time is the total time the ball is in the air. So hang time equals total air time. And that's from when the ball leaves the punter's foot until it's caught. With a cast net, it's a total time for the entire perimeter of the net to hit the water. Now here's some of the physics. All objects thrown, launched, or fired into the air come under the influence of gravity. Now this includes balls, cast nets, bullets, and arrows, etc. Now these objects follow a curved path like this, called a parabola. And it's roughly the shape of an upside down U. Now a rainbow will often take this shape. Since our objective here is to get the maximum distance with a cast net, we need to determine the optimum angle to launch the net. And this can easily be done with some basic calculus, but we'll stick with the football analogy in a graphic. Engineers use lines called vectors to represent direction and speed, but to simplify things we'll substitute energy for speed. Now when a ball is punted, the energy from the kicker's foot is divided between driving the ball up and out depending on the angle he chooses. For example, if the ball is kicked straight up, we could draw a vector like so. And this vector has a direction of 90 degrees to the horizontal, and it has 100 units in here of energy. So we could label this as energy in the vertical direction was 100 and energy in the horizontal direction was 0, because it didn't go to the left or the right. It went straight up, and then it probably just comes straight back down again. Now for an onside kick, assuming the ball is just skimming over the ground, 100% of the energy is in the horizontal direction, and we could draw a vector like this to represent that. And this would be 0 degrees, and this would have energy in the horizontal direction of 100 and energy in the vertical direction of 0. So, to determine the optimum angle for the longest distance, let's start with two extremes and one in the middle to narrow down some of the many choices the punter can decide on. And this right here, we'll show this as a right angle. So for our first vector, let's start with a high angle kick of 60 degrees. It would be roughly like so. So this would follow a curve, a parabola, that would look something like this. So we could label this curve as 60 degrees, and it would have energy in the vertical direction of 60 units and energy in the horizontal direction of 40 units. Now for our second curve, let's pick a different color here. Let's take half of this angle of 60 degrees and start a vector at 30 for a low angle kick. So 30 degrees would be roughly in here, like so. So this would follow a parabola. It would look something like this, and it would end up at the same point as a 60 degree because it doesn't have very much hang time. So this is the 30 degree angle. This has energy in the vertical direction of 30 units and energy in the horizontal direction of 70, but unfortunately without the hang time it just can't get out there. So for our final angle, let's choose another color, and green here, and that would be in between. That'd be a 45 degree angle, say. So we could put this vector right in the middle of these two. And this one splits the energy evenly between the horizontal and the vertical directions. So we could show this parabola as going like so. And this one we can label as 45 degrees, and it has energy in the vertical of 50 units and energy in the horizontal of 50 units. Now neither direction is the winner, but both make a strong contribution in both directions. And clearly the best launch angle for maximum distance is 45 degrees. Now quarterbacks and Olympic hammer throwers are very familiar with parabolas and launch angles like this, particularly 45 degrees. And so are we now, and we can now put all our technique options together and apply them in the next segment. You'll recall from part 4 that Bubba couldn't make this 20-foot throw with his 12-foot 16-pound net when he was facing at 205 degrees. Now he knows he can reach the 20-foot mark if all he has to do is put in a launch angle of 45 degrees. We can start making a list over here of all the available techniques to any thrower that he considers as a large and or heavy net for himself, whether he's a 120-pound ballet dancer or a 6'5" quarterback. So our first technique for maximum distance we'll label as T1. And what we want is maximum rotational momentum. In other words, we want maximum force. And technique number 2, which we discussed in the earlier block, was a launch angle of 45 degrees max. It's very common to put some angle into a throw to increase the hang time, because it significantly contributes to opening the net, especially the larger ones. And here's why. Let's see if I can get a different color here. We could draw a net here. Put a little bit of water underneath it. As soon as the net is released, gravity starts to pull down on it and every part of this net. If you're waiting and you're throwing with some launch angle, the trailing edge will be closer to the water. Right here. It's called a trailing edge. And this is the leading edge. This trailing edge will hit the water first and stop its forward progress. However, the rest of the net will continue forward on its momentum and hang time, allowing the net to continue to open until it hits the water. So, if you look at this photo here, this is what the fish sees. Looking at it this way, this would be the trailing edge of the net, equivalent to this point right here. And this would be the leading edge. You could see here that this is roughly at a 45-degree angle, and he's not throwing this net very far, but he's putting in the maximum angle so that he can get a very large net to open fairly close to him. And you could see it's not quite fully open because it's not tight here. The lead line is still a bit loose and it has a bit more distance to go before it fully opens up. Of course, at a higher elevation, such as throwing off a dock or a boat deck, the net has more time to open, so less of an angle is required. So we could say then, for technique number 3, use hang time to open the net. In shallow water where the fish are skittish and you want to reduce visibility, you want to only use enough hang time to get the necessary distance in a full open, and you want to strive for the flattest throw to get the distance. So we can add in here, use only the amount required in the angle. And that's to reduce visibility. You know, fatigue could set in very quickly with heavy nets, especially on the arms and the shoulders. But we can get additional help from some of the largest muscles in our body, like the thighs, the quads, the hamstring, and the calf muscles in the lower leg. You could put all of these to work for you right from the starting position. So if you look at this imaginary circle here, like we showed in some of the earlier parts, and you're standing here with your feet right here, if you bend your knees at a 45-degree angle and you keep your back straight right from this position here, and you start into your launch, once your net is loaded until you get to your launch point here, which of course is tangential to the imaginary circle, and just before you reach this point, you want to keep your back straight and vertical and lift your legs and throw the weight of that net into that launch angle. And you never want to bend over. So we could say for technique number 4 is to use the leg muscles. And the back is kept straight and vertical. You never bend over. It may look cool, but that's something you want to avoid at all costs. As I mentioned before, numerous times, it's hard work to throw a large, heavy net. So for technique number 5, unless it's absolutely necessary, it's much more fun and effective to use the smallest practicable net that allows you to get, I would say, a minimum of 10 and a maximum of 15 throws per day. And technique number 6, and we discussed this in previous parts, is to use the wrist snap. In summary then, our equation for maximum distance for what you consider a large and heavy net is, so you want maximum rotational momentum plus a 45-degree angle plus bent knees plus the wrist snap and you want the back straight and vertical. Now go get them. Brewskis plus some smoked mullet is good for days. Now it's your turn. Reach out and help someone. It's good for a lifetime. Good luck, my friends.